And speaking of hospitals, let's talk about the Al-Shifa hospital. For the Palestinians, it is the largest medical complex in the Gaza Strip. And for the Israelis, this hospital is a major military base of the Hamas. So in the last 48 hours, this hospital complex has witnessed violence, a fierce gun battle between the IDF and the Hamas. Today came the D-Day. The Israeli forces raided the Al-Shifa hospital. According to reports, dozens of Israeli soldiers entered that facility and stationed tanks in the medical complex. They used loudspeakers ordering young men to give up their arms and surrender themselves. And speaking about the raid, the IDF said that it was conducting a precise and targeted operation against Hamas. It added that several Hamas militants were also killed in the raid. Listen to this.
Based on intelligence information and an operational necessity, IDF forces are carrying out a precise and targeted operation against Hamas in a specified area in the Shifa hospital. The IDF is conducting a ground operation in Gaza to defeat Hamas and rescue our hostages. Israel is at war with Hamas, not with the civilians in Gaza. The IDF forces include medical teams and Arabic speakers who have undergone specified training to prepare for this complex and sensitive environment, with the intent that no harm is caused to the civilians being used by Hamas as human shields.
And have a look at these images now. They show what happened inside the hospital during the raid. Medics were seen trying to evacuate patients from a ward which had apparently been hit by a shell. They could be seen moving patients on stretchers as smoke and dust filled up the corridors.
داخل القسم لوجود غبار ودخان كثيف يسبب اختناق المصابين. يتم إجلاء المرضى بصعوبة بالغة. غبار كثيف في المكان. تابعت الأمر لوجود الغازات التي تنبعث من القذيفة التي أطلقت على مبنى التخصص. إذن الاستهداف مباشر. الأمر صعب ومعقد للغاية.
How many people are at the hospital? According to reports, there are at least 2,300 patients, staff and displaced civilians. They have been trapped inside after days of fierce fighting and aerial bombardment. This figure also, by the way, includes 36 newborn babies who are in urgent need of incubators to survive. There are also patients in the ICU. After the raid, they were forced to move away from life-saving devices. Watch this.
I'm standing here at the ICU at Al-Shifa Medical Complex. This department is suffering after the shutdown of electricity due to lack of fuel. The health ministry warned about the lack of the fuel. This department today at dawn was struck directly by the Israeli occupation forces. Here also the ICU and these children, who were on life machines and artificial respiration, were taken into the corridors of the ICU department. These people here were denied life support devices. They face the loss of their lives because there are no support machines or artificial respiration devices. Around 29 patients are facing this tragedy.
The images are absolutely tragic. The question is, what is Israel doing to save these people? I mean, its target is the Hamas militants, not the civilians. Is it going to let them become collateral damage? No, says the IDF. It has released this video which claims to show how the IDF troops are delivering medical supplies to the hospital to ensure that it does not stop functioning. In its statement, it also said that it was willing to ensure the transfer of incubators to the hospital. But the medics stationed inside say that there are laboratories that are still out of order. They are suffering frequent blackouts, and these blackouts are ruining the blood units stored inside.
Since yesterday in Al-Shifa hospital in the laboratory and blood bank, we have not been able to carry out our duties at the headquarters of the laboratory and blood bank. We moved some blood units to other departments with the presence of CBC machines, at least to offer the service to injured and patients. Tonight the electricity was cut completely. The samples have piled up. Blood units may have ruined completely. We cannot start the machines to do the tests. Under these circumstances, the laboratory and blood bank have stopped and everything inside may have been ruined and damaged.
And as the siege continues, reactions are beginning to pour in from all over the world. The UN Emergency Relief Chief has said that hospitals should not be turned into battlegrounds. He also urged Israel to ensure the protection of newborns, patients and medical staff.
Look, Hamas must not, should not use a place like a hospital as a shield for their presence. That is as strong a statement under humanitarian law as is the statement that the hospital should not become a place of a war zone of danger. We find these two issues equally important and equally understandable for both sides.
Meanwhile, back in the United States, the Biden administration is apparently seeking ways to restrain the Israeli military in its operations. This is apparently part of the effort to limit the civilian toll and the risk of a bigger conflict. Reports say that in a letter to President Biden, over 500 political appointees and staff members from about 40 agencies across the Biden administration have criticized America's support for Israel in its war in Gaza. So clearly, the pressure on Israel to scale down its operations is escalating. The question is, will it listen? From where we see it, Israel will not stop until it completely eliminates Hamas. And let's now shift our focus to Pakistan. Last night, we told you how killers are getting killed mysteriously in Pakistan, how terrorists are being shot dead. A total of 19 of them have died this year. 24 hours back, 2 more were hunted down. Just have a look at this video. It's from Pakistan's Punjab province. It shows 2 Lashkar terrorists being shot at in broad daylight. The incident unfolded at the Kokran Chowk in Sialkot, causing major unrest among the local population. Have a look. You saw that for yourself. Who were these men? They have been identified as Mohammad Muzammil and his associate Naimur Rahman. A third associate was also shot at, and last we checked, he was in a critical condition. Remember, this killing comes just 24 hours after a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist was killed in Pakistan. His name was Maulana Rahim Ullah Tariq. Tariq was not only a key member of the terror group, he was also a close aide of Masood Azhar. On the 13th of November, the Jaish terrorist was shot dead in Karachi's Orangi town. According to Pakistani media reports, Tariq was on his way to attend a religious gathering when unidentified men opened fire on him. And 3 days before that, on the 10th of November, another LET recruiter and commander, Akram Khan Ghazi, was gunned down by bike-borne assailants in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Pakistani law enforcement tried to point fingers at India, but Pakistani news outlets said infighting within the factions led to his murder. And then on the 7th of November, a key member of another terror group, LET or Lashkar-e-Toiba, Khwaja Shahid, was abducted and later found beheaded. Who exactly was he? Well, Khwaja Shahid was believed to be involved in the 2018 terrorist attack on the Indian Army camp in Jammu and Kashmir's Sunjwan. That's 4 killings in just 1 month, and it does not even end there. On the 10th of October, Shahid Latif, a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist and mastermind of the 2016 Pathankot attack, was killed. He was killed by 3 masked gunmen. On the 30th of September, Mufti Qaisar Farooq, a close aide of LET chief Hafiz Saeed, was gunned down in Karachi. On the 12th of September, LET terrorist Zia-ur-Rahman was killed while he was out for a stroll. And on the 6th of May, Paramjit Singh Panjwar, one of India's most wanted criminals and the head of Khalistan Commando Force, was gunned down in Lahore. So you have Khalistanis, you have Islamic extremists, they are all biting the dust in Pakistan, getting killed in their own playing field. What explains this? Are Pakistani terrorists now at war with themselves? Are these killings the result of some inter-gang rivalries? Whatever be the case, one thing is clear. These killings are not happening out of the blue. There certainly has been a trigger that has resulted in these cases. An elderly Thai immigrant dies after being shoved to the ground. A Filipino-American slashed in the face with a box cutter. A Chinese woman slapped and then set on fire. 8 people killed in a shooting rampage across 3 Asian spas in one night. As horrific as all of these incidents sound, there's also one thing that's common in all of them. Anti-Asian racism is not new in the United States, but the COVID-19 pandemic just made it worse. Our next report telling you about a new poll that focuses on America's racism epidemic. Take a look.
On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. And soon after, terms like self-isolation, quarantine and lockdown became a part of our lives. But COVID-19 was also fueling the spread of another disease, and that is racism.
Talk to those 17 people.
Despite ongoing advocacy and legislation to combat anti-Asian racism that emerged after the pandemic, a new poll from AAPI Data and the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research finds that about 1/3 of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have experienced an act of abuse based on their race or ethnicity in 2022, including being at the receiving end of verbal harassment, slurs, physical threats, or cyberbullying. The poll also finds that at least 14% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders believe they have been the victim of a hate crime almost every day, while around half, that is nearly 51%, believe racism is an extremely or very serious problem in America. Throughout American history, the topic of race has been a contentious issue. About 2 in 10 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders say they have experienced being verbally harassed or abused, and at least 22% have been called a racial or ethnic slur. About 1 in 10 also say they have been physically assaulted or threatened, and about 1/3 of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders say they often or sometimes face discrimination because of their race or ethnicity when applying for jobs. It's been nearly 4 years since the pandemic altered our lives. And since then, shocking racist attacks against Asian Americans have occurred frequently in the United States. For instance, in July 2020, in New York City, an 89-year-old Chinese-American woman was slapped in the face by 2 male strangers on the street. And when she tried to escape, the men set her clothes on fire from behind. America's historic division over race remains at the heart of so many conflicts we see today. The path forward, fraught with racial, political and social tension, should address the rising public health threat of violence towards Asian Americans. Public opinion data clearly shows that this problem is too great to ignore. More must be done to stop racism and hate. Evaluate emerging strategies and identify the best practices. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.